Hi Alice, great to see you today.
Hello.
I know you've been doing a lot of work looking at how we're going to emerge from lockdown and how the city and a lot of companies are going to actually be able to come out of this, because that seems to be the major concern of most cities we're talking to, not just in the UK, but across Europe, that cities are lagging behind how towns and rural areas are going to get up. What are your views of this?
Yeah, I think, I mean, and you were saying just now actually that, visiting London recently, it's remarkable how quiet it is. And like you, I was in London, week before last. And it is a bit of it's a sobering experience to go in and to find yourself in London in the rush hour, and it's quiet and there are no queues and it feels like a Sunday. And you think, my goodness, just physically, it symbolizes how many of us would be in those spaces and we're not. And so we are learning a different way of living. And in some sense, that makes your brain think, well, my goodness, do we have to undo all of that learning? What does that look like? I think it is going to be a slow return to a somewhat different way of living and working. But I do think it's going to be based on everything, the conversations that I'm having, both internally, critically with my clients, the kind of fact finding that we're all doing. I do think it is going to be a somewhat different future. I don't think it is going to change everything that we know about what it means to go to a workplace and what it means to work in physical proximity to other people. So I do think that there is a piece of us, and for some of us more significantly than others, but there is a piece of us that needs the human interaction that comes with being a grown-up in the world of work and going out and contributing something. That to do some of that in person is an important thing to do. And to be an organization, you can do that for a period of time remotely, because you can rely on the institutional kind of, culture that you've built up over time. But if you think about it, if you are a new graduate coming into an accounting firm or a law firm, there is a limit to the degree to which you can take on feeling a part of something if you've actually only met it through the four walls of your bedroom. And so I think that over time, we will rediscover the parts that are important about coming to work. But in my mind, I'm not preparing for it to go back to either the style or the volume that it was before. I think that will be a foolish assumption to make.
So what are you expecting in terms of your forecast, can I ask?
Well, what we're seeing, what I'm seeing from the conversations I'm having is that in the shortish term, what we're expecting is substantially less than half of people to be back, let's say at the end of the calendar year. So I'm not expecting that in the autumn people are going to flood back. I am expecting, here's the things I'm expecting in kind of calendar order. So in a week's time, I'm expecting people to start coming back in a slow way. And that's because a lot of clients are signaling that there is a point in time, and we've reached it now, where people who might not need technically to work in the office, but might feel vulnerable, disconnected, in need of something, need to be able to come back in. And a lot of clients are signaling that that's July, to give people some access. And actually that's what we're doing with our offices. Then I'm expecting that we will have a summer holiday and that people will take that. And there will be another return phase in September. And that will give us a sense as to, okay, what business models can work here? It's going to be much more flexible. It's going to be more dynamic. It's going to be more multitasking on behalf of my staff. So you'll be doing maybe one thing in the morning and a different activity in the afternoon in order to support a smaller group of people. And then I think over 2021, we're going to ramp up. And in my mind, I am planning for a business that could be successful on let's say, and I'm picking numbers, but it's of the order of, let's say, 2/3 to 3/4 of the busyness that we were seeing before. I think that's a sensible thing to do because it's significantly far away from what we've seen, that we have to think differently, but it doesn't turn us all into spacemen or robots or, rethink everything about what we do. So that's the kind of planning path that's in my head for, let's say, the next 18 months or so.
Yeah. I mean, it raises all kinds of questions, doesn't it? Which is fascinating in itself. like how will cities reinvent themselves? Because actually there's an opportunity here to actually be much more sustainable, to create all new spaces, pedestrian spaces, eating out spaces, which actually would then re-engage people to come back in over a period of time. Is that fair as well? Because you must be doing a lot of work in the museums piece as well, and heritage sites as well, but how do you re-engage people? Is that fair? And actually it's also going to change how people eat as well, isn't it? Or, I mean, it is a fascinating period.
I think it will, and I'm really glad you raised the sustainability point. I mean, we've spent time recently thinking about, okay, we sort of have to talk about what we do now in a bit of a different way. I would never, ever, ever have wished for this, but one of the silver linings I think it's brought is that it's broken this kind of thing we have had of, you've got hospitality over there and you have some staff dining over here, and maybe, as you said, you know, a museum over there, and it's all little blocks that, which blocks do you want as a client? Do you want that block? Do you want that block? I'll add them together for you. And I think this is going to destroy that in a really healthy way. And it's going to become more about, you are a group of humans who would like to have a fulfilling and productive and a fun time with each other in a space. And being humans, we do that often through the medium of food and drink. That is how we do this. And those are not going to change. But the way that you put those pieces together is going to be much less siloed. The silos have to go. And so, which is why I was saying, I think it's a shared group of people that are going to provide much more variety in what we do. But you know what, when we stepped back and we went, okay, how do we talk about this? We realized that a lot of the building blocks that define who we are as an organization, they don't change. What they've done is potentially accelerate in terms of importance, but we haven't got a revolution in the things that we bring. We think what we're going to bring is, so there is one revolution, and I think that is in the flexibility of what we do. Other than that, the key pillars for us are going to be sustainability, as I think we're going to come right back at that as a community. Community itself, so how do we make a social contribution through the work that we do? And I think that's going to become more important. The sense of feeling connected to the rest of us in society is going to remain there. And actually, as RA Group, that has always been incredibly core to who we are. And I think it's important to people who work in hospitality generally. You know, we are a ladder industry. We provide people with ladders to climb up, and those ladders can be as long as you like. And so that social contribution is really going to remain. And then I think the other piece that's going to come through really strongly is doubling down on wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness, thinking about how you create life experiences for yourself and for others that are sustaining, that are positive in nature. Obviously, there's kind of the corona link to immunity, and that's a great thing. But I think actually there's a broader wellness agenda. For me personally, I think the mental health agenda, I'm very glad that it has become more of a talking point through what we've been going through. And I don't want that to go away. I think that's another piece of what we do. So actually, wellness, sustainability, community, that was already there. Maybe this elevates it. And what we have to add is this piece about being very flexible and very dynamic about the nuts and bolts of what we do.
And one of the other pieces here is the cultural sustainability, which is something that, because actually there's a view that actually what people are really missing is that cultural piece that brings people together.
Yeah.
And actually for the museums and for Somerset House and other places like that, there's a real opportunity, isn't there? Yeah. Maybe to really look at things in a completely new way.
I think so. I mean, don't you find there are things that you're kind of looking forward to now that you know, in a kind of a childlike way that you didn't before? Did you? So here's the thing, when you went into town, did you? Because I did. It was like my favorite thing in the world. I had like a proper, honest to God coffee made by a barista, not by me at home. You know, do you have those things too?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, a coffee was the first thing I had when I went into London.
There you go.
Yeah, right. And I'm really looking forward to going for a pint, I have to say.
Yes.
And actually, as we move on to this, onto a really good meal, to eat out again and not eat my own cooking would be a privilege. So I suppose one of the questions when it comes to the restaurants, the great restaurants you have, how do you see those adapting? And I suppose, is there an opportunity to bring those great chefs into food service or use them in a different way? Because it must be a very insecure period for them.
It is. And I think that the high street element of what we do, I mean, obviously we have high street representation, we have we're at Parliament Square. We have Somerset House that's open to the public, and there's a beautiful restaurant there. We have City Social. So we have these places, and so we are part of that community of chefs and hospitality that is very much at the cutting edge of needing to fill tables in order to survive. And it's a really concerning time. Of course it is. It's the kind of devastation that I think that part of hospitality hasn't known probably for hundreds of years. And but you know what, it's also a really mutually supportive part of hospitality. I think we're kind of mutually supportive anyway. And it's also hugely creative. So right back in March, the first conversations were about, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this is happening. And quite quickly, the second conversation was, I'm going to do things differently. How am I going to be back? What is it going to look like? And I'll tell you also, there were huge messages of support coming directly from consumers in those businesses, contacting Jason, contacting Michelle and saying, I am already waiting to come back to your restaurant and to support you. So I think, like you, there's a lot of people who want to get back to that. In practical terms, 1 meter is going to help us significantly. So, thank you, UK PLC, for that. It has to be managed in the right way, but 1 versus 2 is a huge difference in your interactions. So it does mean that you can actually serve people in a restaurant environment without, creating things on pulleys in order to do so. I think you are right. People will, and chefs will find ways of adapting their creativity to different environments. In a sense, I think we have an advantage actually, because we've always thought of ourselves as having this model where we have chefs who we love, who come into our spaces, cook with us, we bring our guests to their spaces, then we've had that fluidity. What I want to do now is push that harder and further. So, if you're used to maybe, once a year, an amazing chef is coming into your workplace and doing something, how do you make that a more normal part of what we do so that we don't necessarily just have to serve people in high-end boxes on the high street? There are other opportunities. So yeah, I think we will find that. I think there will be a way through. It's a really scary time, but in a way, I'm hugely optimistic about it, because I think more than anything else, food is a creative industry, and creative people find ways to adapt to new opportunities. And I know that will happen.
I mean, it's amazing. I think that's one of the amazing aspects of this period, isn't it? If I said to you at the beginning of the year, you're going to lose 40% of your business, 50% of your business, you would be going, oh my God. But actually people have adapted and actually are coming out of it with positivity out of it, which is, it says a lot, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I think this industry has resilient people, creative people. We have people. So, I mean, oh my goodness, thank goodness for Zoom and for Teams, quite frankly, because if we hadn't been able to see each other, I think we'd have gone bonkers. So that is a bit of a saving grace. And we are finding the degree of invention that's happening now is, I think, really quite special. But again, I come back to, I think the invention, a lot of it, the really exciting stuff is actually accelerating things that we were doing already.
I agree with that.
We're already thinking about wellness, but my goodness, how do we think about wellness now when someone might be in the office 1 day a week, but at home fending for themselves with a cheese toasty maker the other 4 days a week? And that's a whole other opportunity to help someone with their wellness journey. So yeah, I think it will create as many opportunities as it closes in the long run.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And what are you doing on that? Are you doing more?
On the home piece.
Yeah, on the home piece. Are you doing more on that side?
Yeah, we are. And it's going to be a combination of things, I think. And it's going to be, as it always is in our market, it's going to be horses for courses. So we are very client oriented. We're always trying to think about things from the perspective of a client's culture. So for one client, it may well be directly getting involved in meal provision in someone's home. And in fact, through our partner Feeder, who have a delivery model, we're already developing those things. But then the other piece that opens up is how do you support people's wellness with digital tools? So, we're all used to carrying apps and managing things that way. Getting to a place where we have digital technology that can support people, help think about getting a balanced menu when they're in work and they have access to that cafe or to that delivery system. And then when they're at home, battling with the contents of their own fridge, but still able to think about how you get balance through the course of a week. So I think the technology side will become very key to that as well. So yeah, it's going to be lots of different approaches, but we have to think of ourselves now as not supporting offices, but supporting employees wherever they are. I mean, otherwise, by definition, we just shrink down to too small a proportion.
And the obvious question is, I assume this is going to change models a bit.
Oh, in commercial models?
Yes. It's always been a big debate anyway, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, in my mind, you've got to start with what are people looking for, and what people are looking for has shifted, I think. But there is a desire for people to support their employees at work, to create great environments, and therefore there is a value to that. So first you think about where's the value, what do people want to provide on behalf of, let's say, their employees or their visitors, if it's a, as you say, a museum or a zoo. And then you think about, okay, what packages can we put together to support them? And then how do we make those packages commercially support themselves? And I suspect there's just going to be more variety in the ways that we do that. At the moment, there is a lot of thinking around how sustainable a commercial model is. I have absolutely no doubt that we will get back to a place where we are providing commercial models, but they will be on a different footing. And it's a whole different level of sustainability. If, for example, you have someone who is able to be a barista within a cafe environment, and then to be part of a team serving, a beautiful dinner later in the day. And I think that opens up opportunities. So yeah, you're right. The models will change, but I think again there will be a lot of invention. I don't think we're just going to sit on our hands and say, well, we can't do it anymore. I don't think that will be what happens.
Doubt that. Obviously, for you, it must have been quite a challenge for you. I mean, you've been MD now for a couple of years.
Yeah.
It must have been having quite an impact on you. How has it all impacted on you, and how have you changed as a result of this?
Yeah, well, I think it's made me really, I think more than anything else, it's made me really appreciate and have respect for the people that I work with. And I'd include a wide grouping in that. I mean, the team I work with more than anything, and the folks who have been, every single day since this started, we still have people going in to support other people doing work in workplaces and other places, so there's been a commitment from our teams on site, and also to our operators, all the people who create what we do, that just I think more than anything else, it's made me realize how lucky I am to work in the space that I do, with people that care so much about doing their work to the best that they can and supporting those around them, and to be actually really grateful that I work in a time when it is not only acceptable, but a requirement to think about looking after the people that you work with. So, me and my team we all did mental health first aid training about 9 months ago, so way before this happened. Yes, it's a good thing to do. This is kind of, embracing the now, and we're all just completely committed to things. But now that preparedness has taken on a different flavor to it, actually. And the realizing that you have an important role to play as someone's employer, looking after others, is a huge privilege, really. And it just makes you think that these are wonderful places to work with the people that we do. And I think that's probably the biggest impact. I think anything that shakes things up so seriously, you just do, don't you? You sit back of an evening, you go, my goodness, bloody hell, how did we do that? And none of it's done on our own. So yeah, it's been strange and it's been weird, but I think, no more for me than anybody else. But what I have seen is there's just the breadth and depth of how people have supported each other and how people faced in. I'm sure it's the same for you. You see things in a different light, don't you?
Well, the thing which strikes me most actually interesting is when we started this, I think the conversation was, oh my God, there are going to be loads of divorces. There's going to be loads of depression. There's going to be loads of fallout and how miserable everyone's going to be. And so far, I know a whole range of couples have come together during lockdown, families who refound themselves and are much happier. People who don't want to come back to work because they're much happier finding a lifestyle. probably less mental health in some ways, although I'm sure there's going to be huge fallout from this, and actually a huge amount of positivity and a lot of pride in what people delivered. So it's almost been the polar opposite to what we expected back on March 19, where it was.
Yeah, I'm hoping for as much of that as possible. Yes.
Yeah, it's whether it lasts, isn't it? As always. Alice, that's been fantastic. It's been lovely speaking to you today. And look, I look forward to seeing you in real life again when we actually get out of this.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to filling up those tube trains and getting back in a safe way. Yeah, very much.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.